Garden Gurus Live is brought to you by Garden Express and Troforte. Garden Express are Australia's leading mail ordering service, offering a wide range of quality gardening products. Each week on the Garden Gurus Live, the team at Garden Express will share a weekly offer. So make sure after today's show, you jump online and visit their website.
Troforte is the leading supplier of controlled release fertilisers and micronutrients, and it's committed to delivering environmentally friendly solutions for your garden. Each week we'll be giving away a Troforte prize pack valued at $250. Simply follow, like and comment the weekly code word on Troforte's Facebook page. Well, hello, welcome to the Garden Gurus Live. I'm Trevor Cochrane. I'm here today to be answering your gardening questions and hopefully sharing a few little bits of wisdom to keep the garden looking good. We are in a very interesting time of the year. I should say before we get started that The Apprentice has now moved into the driving seat. Way is going to be producing today. Shaylee will be watching carefully though over his shoulder, so hopefully it all runs smoothly. Now, we have a lot of things going on today. Of course, we have our Garden Express offer. We'll catch up with Rowan very, very soon. Pretty cool plants to keep your eye out for. We also have, of course, the $50 Garden Express gift voucher for the best question for today, and it's an absolutely brilliant way to go shopping, you know, from the comfort of your armchair. You can do it 24/7, and of course they deliver direct to your door. And we also have, of course, our Troforte competition today. I will be giving you the code word a bit later on in today's show. Now, it is going to get you $250 worth of Troforte, which will keep your garden fertilised pretty much for the whole year. It's a pretty good deal. All right. Now, let's maybe we'll go straight to Rowan, I think, and get into it straight away. Rowan, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you today?
Good, mate. How's the weather in Melbourne?
It's still up and down. It was beautiful yesterday. It's a bit cooler today and overcast, but we haven't had any rain for a little while. But I think there's some for the weekend, so hopefully it's not too much.
Yeah, that keeps things ticking along as well. It's funny, we've crossed that line about 2 weeks ago, I think, here in the West, where we're now starting to see a gradual build of temperatures. I think today's going to be somewhere between 35, 36. So it changes everything in the garden with how you start to think about what you're doing. All the gains we made during the wet season, during the winter and the spring, of course, now's the time to make sure that we don't lose them. So water is a pretty important thing. Equally so with indoor plants. Now, I was downstairs. We've got this huge living wall, as you well know there. Yep. And there are many beautiful plants in that wall. We've got one that's actually sort of indoor plants, ferns and foliage plants. We've got another one that is obviously the beautiful moth orchids, the Phalaenopsis orchids around the outside. There's a love heart of those amazing bloomin orange African violets in the middle. And around the outside of that, we have some spectacular anthuriums. Now, I was looking at them and I know that I'm going to have to increase my watering regime over the next 4 or 5 months just to make sure that they don't dry out, because they look magnificent at the moment. They're just spectacular.
They really do. What you can't see off camera is what I've got surrounding me at the moment, and that's obviously stunning anthuriums, different colours.
Look at the colours on that. The blush of pink on the...
You see how the deep pink of the... it's just amazing, that one. And perhaps my favourite is the black or the chocolate one, which is just incredible. You can see they're just...
they're the ones I was admiring downstairs, like literally 15 minutes ago. That is a surreal coloured flower. It is just amazing. Of course, it's all part of this collection of incredible colours from the Bloomin Orange range, right?
Yeah, it's just another one that we've partnered up with the guys from Bloomin to bring to customers. This one's perhaps one of my favourites. I mean, you can't go past the orchids, and the African violets that we spoke about last week are stunning. But these ones, are really, really easy to grow. And it can make you look like an expert when it comes to indoor plants without really trying. And that's probably why I like them so much.
Look at
Orange ones. So,
look at the beautiful colours.
Look at the amount of growth on that. It's just
the plants. That is about as good a quality as you will ever get. That is magnificent. Now, there's a lot more to plants because anthuriums typically do not look like that. They tend to be a little bit less foliagey, often in like sporadic flowers. But this breeding that Bloomin Orange is bringing to Australia from the best breeders in the world, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about superior genetics, aren't we?
That's right. Bred to flower and give you so much more flower, as you're seeing there in the vision. We're not selling an anthurium this year that hasn't got at least 3, if not 4, 5 plus blooms on it already. And obviously that beautiful lush green foliage. It's just incredible. And they're working really hard around the globe to make sure that they're bred for home conditions. And that's why we've partnered up with Bloomin Orange. They're best at what they do.
Look at the colours. I look at that and I think to myself, this is the ultimate in house plants. And you kind of hit the point with this one, and that is, this is a plant that's almost impossible to kill. They are so tough.
Yeah, they really are. I guess one tip is well lit position, not direct sunlight. If it's not well lit, you may not get as many flowers. You get fewer flowers, and it'll tend to grow a bit taller and a bit more spindly because it's looking for
light. Yeah.
But other than that, as far as watering goes, you mentioned you're going to up your watering regime, but really, all you really need to do is make sure that it's if it's dry to touch, give it a bit of water. If it's not, don't. And that's pretty much as easy as it is. And you're gonna continue to get these flowers, potentially all year round, if it's in the right position.
Rowan, traditionally this is a plant that would flower once or twice a year, but these will continue to flower constantly throughout the year. You raised the point about the number of flowers that are there, but if you were to look inside that foliage, there's probably an equal number of buds because they just keep flowing through, don't they?
Well, you can just see in there that there's another 3, one that's out and another 2 that aren't too far away. So and what you can't see on camera is just how many are coming through there as well. It's just absolutely stunning.
Now, obviously, you guys, you are the retailer when it comes to these with Bloomin Orange. You've introduced them really last year on the Garden Gurus, and this is obviously the next crop coming through. Do you reckon you could do a deal for our Garden Gurus live viewers?
Absolutely, we can. Plants of this quality, the 5 colours that I've showed you this morning, regularly in a 140ml pot, they're going to be $28.90, and we're going to do them for just $22.90, which is a 20% saving.
Wow!
Imagine that on the Christmas table, mate. It's just
yeah. You know what? That's a really good point too. What a great plant to have in and around with the festive season upon us.
Yeah.
Beautiful colour, but it's not just the red. You've got the white, you've got the pink. There's obviously that black flower, and of course the traditional orange as well.
Yeah, I don't know if I showed you the orange there, but there's the orange one.
Wow,
look at
beautiful.
You don't actually see there on the camera just how orange that is, but that's like a real orange. I don't know if you can see it against.
Yep.
They probably look very similar, but they're not. They're absolutely not. Look, just have a look.
Stunning plant. They're beautifully grown too, Ryan. Look at the composition of the plants in the pots. They're just magnificent.
Yeah. So we partner, as far as growing goes, we partner with Fine Golds here in Victoria.
Yeah,
they're probably the best grower of anthuriums here in Victoria, at least, and orchids and all those types of indoor plants. I believe, now don't quote me on this, but I believe anthuriums are the second best or well-grown indoor plant in the world, just trailing behind the orchids.
Wow.
So, very, very popular, and it's not hard to see why.
No, not surprising. Beautiful glossy foliage, magnificent flowers, all the different colours. Look at that. That's a crazy colour, isn't it? That's just...
And look at the size of that. Look at the size of that.
Yeah. That's
Absolutely.
super cool. All right. Well, I'm sure everybody's getting excited about it. These are the plants that you bring indoors. As we get hotter, we tend to spend more time, sheltering from extremes. And this is the time to have lots of plants inside the house. Anthuriums are one of the great air cleaners as well. So they purify the air that we breathe. So having them in the house is really good. What a great deal. So normally $28.90, 20% off, $22.90. Of course, the great thing about Garden Express, apart from all the different plants and everything else that you have there, is that you can shop in the comfort of your armchair 24/7 basically.
Yep.
And then you guys deliver direct to the door.
We sure do. So these are ready to ship out now. As soon as the orders come in, we'll be shipping those out. So over the weekend, any orders that come in, keep in note for people, this or next week is Melbourne Cup here in Victoria, obviously. So we've opted to give our staff Monday and Tuesday off. So shipping will be Wednesday for these this week. Yeah, everyone's been working so hard. We thought an extra long weekend is probably on the ticket.
Tell you what, you, Chloe, David, you just, you're, to be quite honest, and without being silly about it, you guys are a family business, and you obviously treat all your team that way, and it's a really lovely thing.
Yeah, we do. We consider all of our staff family. So they deserve a little bit of an extra weekend this weekend. It's been a tough year, and it's been busy. So they deserve some time off. So that's what we're going to be doing.
Well, you've caused me a little bit of a problem because Wei and Shaylee are saying, "Oh, gee, aren't they nice?" And I'm starting to feel the pressure here at Gurus as well. So we'll have to come up with a cup or something over here. We're big in snail racing over here in the West, so maybe we'll give that a shot.
Yeah, that's the way to go.
Yeah, we'll call it the Subiaco Cup.
Okay, put $10 on Turbo for me.
Yeah. Hey, Ryan, thanks very much. Great deal. Now, of course, if people want to get this deal and get their hands on these plants, I would imagine you've got some pretty good stocks, but they never last. There's always particular varieties that get taken up first. So jump in and get in early, folks.
I would say that dark black one and the pink one will be probably the most popular. So if you're looking for either one of those, I'd get in relatively quickly. African violets last week, mate, they sold over the weekend. Obviously, once this hits TVs and it goes out to the nation, doesn't really matter how much stock we've got, it tends to disappear. So, guys, take the opportunity, being that we've given you a sneak peek. If you're interested in these, jump online and grab one.
Well, in the spirit of having a punt, I've got $20 on the black one to sell out first. We'll see how we go, hey?
Okay, let's check in on that next week. I reckon it's the pink one.
And remember, with gambling, you never win.
No, never win. But with Garden Express, always.
Good on you, mate. Thanks for joining us. We'll look forward to seeing you next week, Ryan.
See you then.
It's always fun catching up with Ryan. They are a great family business. And it's important to remember that whilst that you might think, oh, well, it's an internet company, of course, they do sell their product via the internet, but they are actually a family nursery business that's, I think 4 generations in this family have been working in Australian horticulture, and they're just lovely people too. They'll never let you down. That's one of the things that I really love, is for those of you who haven't have bought things off them in the past, you'll know that it's always good quality. It's always lovely. So all right, I know. Let's get on with it, because you are putting through lots and lots of questions. Remember, we've got $50 gift voucher at Garden Express for the best question today. The first one comes from one of our favourites, Lynn Winstanley. Hello, Lynn's over here in Western Australia in a beautiful suburb called Claremont. Can you tell me when gardenias have their growth spurt, please? Well, right now, your gardenias should be producing lots of flowers, and they are about to finish in about 2 to 3 weeks. They'll finish. If you were to go through and pick all those flower buds off right now, what will happen is they won't put energy into producing seed, they'll put energy into growth. So they'll push out lots of growth. That's really the time to be encouraging that. But as soon as they finish flowering, they're going to put a lot of energy into that. So give them a feed, and they'll perform really, really well now the weather's warming up. Okay, Carla Hambury. I'm not sure where you're from, Carla. Remember, tell me where you're from, folks. Oh, she's from Albany. Okay, Albany is in the it's the southern corner of Western Australia. I'm having buffalo grass coming through my kikuyu lawn. Wow. It's now taking off an amount that's too big to dig out. Is there anything I can do? What an unusual problem. Interestingly enough, Carla, these are both broadleaf grasses, and I would normally never suggest this under any circumstances. But if you got yourself the normal weed and feed, that's not the weed and feed for buffalo lawns, but you got the normal one, and you were to hose it over your lawn, both of the grasses would turn yellow, and the lawn would look a little sick for a few weeks, probably 2 or 3. But what would happen is the buffalo grass would be knocked back so badly. Kikuyu is a very, very vigorous growing grass variety. It's probably one of the very best for playing surfaces. In a garden environment, it can be a bit risky when it can take off and get into garden beds, so it does need to be controlled. I have kikuyu in my own garden. I love it as a grass. If it's mowed regularly, it looks magnificent, but it is more vigorous than buffalo. So hearing buffaloes making its way in is a bit of a problem. The only way you're going to be able to pull that back is to think about maybe doing something like what I've just suggested. But look, it's really one of those things. The truth of the matter is that you might find out that the buffalo actually takes over the kikuyu and looks fantastic. But it is a bit unusual that it's the reverse way. Normally, from my point of view, it would be the other way around. It'd be a buffalo lawn struggling because kikuyu is invading it. That's how strong kikuyu is. All right, hopefully that helps you. Let's go to Queensland. Judendon Peterson. Hello, Judendon. I hope I got that right. Hi, this is a good question. Hi, can you please explain why my 8-year-old bird of paradise will not flower? It's growing in full sun. It's watered every Saturday morning. Repotted it last December into a huge pot when I made over the garden. Now, typically when they're in pots, they will produce flowers. And it's because they don't like extremes. And you're only watering it every Saturday morning. That's not a lot. It should be producing flowers. But the truth of the matter is that the thing that triggers flowering in plants and fruiting more often than not is stress. So I would back off the water altogether, and I would let this plant dry out and to the point where you can start to see it stressing, or it starts to droop and it looks unhappy. Then I would flood it again. I would give it really good water, and then I'd leave it for 2 weeks, and then I'd give it, I'd let it dry out, get it stressed again. And that stress process will trigger this natural instinct to produce flowers and seed ultimately, so that the species continues on. That's how Mother Nature works at her very best. So that would be what I would do to trigger that. Now, of course, in a pot, it's easy to do. In a garden, a lot harder, but still the same principles apply. Jennifer Hardy Hanley, hello, you're in New South Wales. My anthurium is indoors and does not flower. What should I do, please? Well, this goes back to that breeding thing we were talking about. So this Bloomin Orange organisation really picks some pretty amazing plants, and the ones that they pick don't have this traditional problem that anthuriums will often happen, and that is that when they're in a slightly darker environment, they tend not to produce flowers. They might do it once or twice a year, but not a lot. Whereas these other ones, these new ones that you've just seen on the show, they actually flower continuously throughout the year. And we're not talking one flower, we're talking multiple flowers. It's a really, interesting bit of breeding. If you want to try and trigger this one into flower, you need to get it into a brighter position, not full sun, but as close to the window as you can without it getting burnt. A southern aspect is always a good way to go as far as a window. If you've got a southern facing window, stick it right up against the window. That light should trigger that flowering process. And look, another little tip, and it's only through personal experience I can tell you this, but I found that if you take banana skins and you wrap them on the inside of the pot, between the plant and the pot, that all that potassium that's in the banana skin seems to trigger as it breaks down, trigger a flowering process. So, yeah, hopefully that helps. Graham Kelso. Graham's a great supporter of ours. He's in Melbourne in Victoria, and he has sent us some photographs. I have 5 Magnolia grandiflora growing along the side fence. I've noticed they're losing a lot of leaves, more than they did a year ago. Should I be concerned? You know what? This is a pretty common problem, Graham. In fact, I'm looking at mine at home and seeing the same thing. This is occurring, and again, it's Mother Nature at her very best, but this is occurring because the plant is evaluating how much moisture is in the soil at the moment. Melbourne is drying out. We're moving into summer. The conditions are getting drier. The soil moisture levels have declined, And the plant is now saying, well, look, I'm not going to have enough moisture to sustain these old leaves. So I'll drop the old leaves and I'll put the moisture into the new foliage, which generates obviously energy from the sun. So this is Mother Nature at her very best. There's two ways you can slow this down. One is you can increase the water that they're getting, so irrigate them, maybe irrigate them twice a week with a deep watering twice a week, or alternatively, you can probably just accept your fate and say, okay, well, it's going to drop some leaves. Now, if that means that it starts to get spindly, don't be scared to hack them back. In fact, you could almost cut them back in half, and what would happen is you'd get all this new growth occurring from the bottom, and they'd be a lot bushier. But I just wouldn't do it just at the moment because they should be coming into flower and they should be looking pretty good. Hopefully that advice helps you, Graham, and thanks so much for joining us, and thanks for sending me those photos. Okay, let's scroll down a little bit further. Thanks, guys. And we'll get to Lee Verrill, who's in Brisbane. The neighbours are in a high set. Can you suggest a tree that I can plant down the side of my house to block them out? Yeah, I can actually. I would suggest, we were just talking about magnolias, I would suggest Magnolia Little Gem. Evergreen, very upright in its nature. And if you plant them close together, they make the most amazing screen. And yeah, with that higher story, they're going to get to 4 to 5. Mine at home are probably almost 6 meters, and they shouldn't be, but they are. And that makes them the perfect screen for neighbours looking into your backyard or into windows. So hopefully that helps, Lee, and thanks for joining us from Brisbane. Okay, Amber Jade, we don't know where you are from, but you have sent some photographs, which is great. I'd like to know the identification for this plant from my grandmother. I remember her calling a radio gardening show when I was a kid, but I was too excited to hear my grandma on the radio, and I didn't retain the name of the plant. Okay. This is Ruscus, I think. This is a, yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. It's, I can't quite see the photograph on the left, but yes, I'm pretty sure it is. It's Ruscus. It's actually a plant that's a declared weed in Western Australia and some other states because it does have a habit of spreading, but it's used commonly as foliage plant within cut flowers. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Pretty much it's grown for its foliage, and I don't know what more I can tell you. Then it's a lovely plant, and it's obviously very sentimental. I'd say Grandma was growing it. Amber Jade, I hope that helped you, and thank you, and happy gardening to you too. Aaron George is in Mornington, the beautiful Mornington Peninsula in Victoria. I bought 2 super dwarf Cavendish bananas from a backyard nursery yesterday. I was about to plant them, but I wanted your opinion about the health. She said they're 1 year old, but they're only 45 centimetres high. One's got a bit of mould on the stem. That's not a good sign. Lady said that sunlight should fix them as they were in a spot with practically no sun. Will these grow well and normal and not be a problem plant? I thought these should get to their maximum height pretty quickly. I was going to plant them with some compost and dynamic lifter, water them in with a bit of sea salt and sugarcane mulch over the surface. Do you know what? Your plan's perfect. What you'll find with bananas and the dwarf Cavendish, it needs fertilizer, it needs water. Most importantly, it needs warmth. And as soon as you get the warmth, you'll see the growth. So get them into a nice sunny spot. Our advice with that is absolutely perfect. So hopefully that helps. Okay, let's keep rolling along. We'll come back to WA. Samantha, hello. How you going, Samantha? You are Samantha Sheffield in Maida Vale. You are talking about your hibiscus, which is very large and it's dropped all its leaves. Not sure what to do. Will I cut it back? It's dropped its leaves. Something's not right. Hibiscus should be starting to grow away quite strongly. Cut it back hard right now, Samantha. You know, maybe cut it right in half. Let's have a look and see what happens. I would hit it with a bit of sea salt and we'll see how that goes. Okay. And Jeannie Napier's just, she's just done. I think I just won $20. Thank you, Jeannie. Bugger, she's missed out on the black anthurium. They've already sold out. How good's that? I reckon Rowan will be out hunting around the nursery to find some more so that you might be able to get them. I would stay on the website and keep looking. Good feedback. Thanks, Jeannie. Pam Collins is in Hillary's. Hello, Pam. Why are the flowers on my anthurium not red anymore? They're brownish yellow. They're indoors. You've got a good light area. What do I need so that the flowers will be red as they originally were? The flower colour won't change except for when they age. That's when they start to lose that luster that they have. I would prune those flowers off, encourage new growth to come through. You will find that the new flowers will be red because they will stay true to the original parent. These do not have genetic variation, so they suddenly don't change colour, where some plants can do if they're not consistent. Hopefully that helps. Let's stay in WA for a moment. Chrissy at Henry's. You're in Perth. What's the best way to enrich my soil for my standards? Now, your standards could be standard anything, but the one thing that they will all want is a rich, healthy soil, and enriching the soil with organics. Now, I'll tell you what I do. So I've composted your roses. Great, good feedback, because they do need a bit of extra love. Good composted organic material. First trick. Any kind of compost that you can create at home. Leaf litter, so when it breaks down, they call it leaf mold, but it's composted leaves. That's great. I have all sorts. So I shred a lot of the green waste that we have. So a big pile of that, and it keeps composting. I keep turning it over. I use that, and then right on top of that, I use sheep manure. Now, the sheep manure does have some nutrient in it, but it also binds this all together and helps it break down a lot quicker. And then the last thing that I always do, and I've just done it in my veggie garden, we've literally harvested probably half of my broccoli crop, and I've pulled the plants out. I've given the plants to the chickens. I've then done that enrichment of the soil, and I've now applied Troforte over the top. I'll water that in, let the microbes do their thing in the soil, and in about a week's time, I'm putting in some heirloom varieties of tomatoes. So I would use the same principle, Chrissy, with your standard roses. And just on roses, your first flush should be just about finished for everybody out there. Go through, deadhead them, and feed your roses immediately with a flower-promoting fertilizer. Okay, you don't want a high nitrogen fertilizer. That'll encourage lots of growth, but no flowers. Feed them now, and you are going to have flowers as we lead into Christmas. It is absolutely beautiful when the garden's full of flowers as you come into the Christmas period. And of course, that wonderful perfume. If you're out entertaining, it's an absolute joy. All right, let's keep rolling along. Kerry McClure. Okay. I'm not sure where you are from, Kerry, but let's have a bit of a talk through your problems. I was wondering what the yellowing on the leaves of roses is. I suspect that if you're getting yellowing, it's one of two things. Either soil's drying out and they're dropping some lower leaves because they're yellowing, or you have black spot, and black spot's pretty common at the moment. If you want to avoid black spot, don't water at night over the foliage. Water in the morning, get them a deep water, and then that's it. Let them dry out during the day. If you were in Perth, there's a lot of, we've got these drying easterly breezes now that start to roll in from the desert, and they will really dry gardens out. This is actually the perfect conditions for roses. Roses love it hot and dry, and now's the time to be making sure that they are getting water when they need it, but not when they don't need it, in the evenings when these diseases proliferate. Kerry's got a second question, and again, photographs. Let's have a bit of a look here. Let's have a bit of a look at that second photograph if we can. Okay, here we go. My nectarine trees are only 14 months old. Founder leaves are going like that. I've pulled off the affected leaves, bagged them and put them in the bin. What you've got there is you've got peach leaf curl, okay? Peaches and nectarines are all from the same family. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. They can sometimes get blister mite, but that's not blister mite. I'm pretty sure that's leaf curl. Not an uncommon thing. It's now when you'll see it, they will grow out of it. Picking the foliage off, perfect thing to do. Next August, and then again in the first week or second week of September, give them a spray with liquid copper. It's a product from Yates, really effective in cleaning this up because it's a bacterial infection that causes it. It's not a fungus, and it will stay in the bark on the tree and re-emerge and damage that new foliage as it starts to grow. But the good news is it'll grow out of that, Kerry. So I'm hoping that that'll all be good for you. And just on that yellowing of the leaves, the roses, in looking at a couple of those photographs, it does look a little viral to me as well, which would be problematic. Just a practice, just something to be conscious of when you're pruning roses, is between each rose bush, when you go out and you start deadheading, you're literally just chopping off the spent flowers. Remember, take a little jar of white spirit or it'll come to me. One of the methylated spirits. One of those would be a really good idea. Take them. Because you could have a virus there, you can transfer viruses manually through secateurs, taking sap from one plant to the other as you're cutting. So dip your secateurs in that white spirit as you're going along, and it just movement of disease from one plant to another. If one plant that's showing up yellow like that, it could be a virus. And what will probably happen is you'll have that yellowing in the foliage, you'll get a stunted growth, you won't get as much flower. And if it really starts to deteriorate, pull the rows out and dispose of it away from, don't put it into compost, dispose of it away where it can't do any harm to your other plants. That will stop the spread of the virus. Remembering viruses are spread by sucking insects, so mites, thrips and aphids also need to be controlled. There's a lot of information in that, and I am belting through these questions for you, but there's a lot of questions coming through, and it's great. They're coming from all over the country. James, Boeing. I'm not sure where you are. That's a part of the country I don't know. Anyway, I have a 3-way apple that I've espaliered. It is 3 years old. It's got good growth on it. Okay, it's in New South Wales. Okay, Shaylee just saved me. Sorry, Helen, I should know better. You've espaliered it. You've got 3 different varieties of apple grafted onto the one plant. I'm imagining it's probably something like that. It is 3 years old. It's good growth, but not a lot of blossom. To keep it in shape, when should I prune it to maximize the fruit? Now, this is an interesting question because it depends what the 3 varieties are that are on there. What's really interesting, I think anyway, is that there are some varieties like Pinkerbell is a good example that flower off first-year wood. So you don't want to prune that off during the winter time. You need to leave that on. If you were going to prune that plant, it's actually about November you would prune it, and you obviously would prune very carefully, not to prune off branches with actual fruit on it. And then as soon as it's finished fruit, I would prune those other branches. And what you should do is end up with a more compact plant with a lot more first-year growth as it goes into the winter, which means come springtime, you're going to end up with more fruit. I know it sounds a little complex, but with all the traditional varieties of apple, you would typically prune them during the winter. And you'd prune them back down to the second-year growth where fruiting spurs come off. That's probably the best bit of advice. Now, there is one other thing. Whilst I know you're in New South Wales, I'm not sure exactly where, but apples do require chill hours. So they require a certain number of hours under 10 degrees Celsius, ideally, to trigger the flowering process. If you have a warm winter, you might end up with a very poor crop of apples. In a home garden environment, you can kind of cheat it a little bit because you can pick the coldest month and then you can start applying some bags of ice every 2 or 3 days, or some old ice out of the fridge, and just throwing it down on the soil, because it's the soil that needs to be chilled. And then that will help guarantee a really good crop. It's called cheating, but it does work. It does work with those sorts of plants. Okay. Another regular on this show that comes in with regular questions, so he must love his garden a lot, is Matthew Naglich. Now, it's in Melbourne. Matthew, thanks for joining us. We've got a Christmas bush. The leaves are turning yellow and some have gone all together. Some flowers are opening up right now. Anything we can do whilst in flower, like feeding? Is there a right time to prune bonsai? Second question. All right, first question. Christmas bush, I think you're talking about Ceratopetalum, which is a New South Wales Christmas bush, but that name can be a little bit common because it's sometimes applied to Metrosideros, which is a New Zealand Christmas tree because it flowers at Christmas time. In Western Australia, there is the Nutsia floribunda, which is a parasitic plant that's unique to this part of the world only, that flowers at Christmas time, and is often called the West Australian Christmas tree. So sometimes they're, in common names, it can be a little bit confusing, which is why it'd be really good for you to send me a photograph. And maybe it's a good time for us to show you how we do that. But before we do, I'll quickly answer your question on how to prune bonsais. Bonsai pruning should be done around the time you're seeing growth. So as you start to see it growing, you let it grow to the point you want it, then you prune it out. There's no particular time of the year because every plant's varying. You just need to be looking at your plants. It's one of the great things about the art form of bonsai is that it's an observational activity. You're constantly looking at your plant, looking at its shape, looking at creating what is an artificial effect. You know, it's really sort of something that you're designing. So you have to be pruning as you see that plant growing. And when you see the foliage start to get to a certain point and it's too far, bring it back to where you want it to be. Hopefully that helps. All right, let's give you a little bit of advice on how you can post photos so that I can help you and give you the right advice. Have you got a gardening question you'd like us to answer and you need to send us a photo? Well, simply head to our Facebook page and click on message. Type out your question and click the camera icon to take a photo in the app. Or click the image option and select the image you want to send us. Be sure to allow Facebook access to your camera and camera roll. We check our messages regularly, so sit back and be sure to tune in to the Garden Gurus Facebook Live show every Friday, and you'll hear your answer. All right, well, we are rolling right along. That's how you post your photos, and of course, you know, it's a really important thing that you actually do that. It really does help me help you. And a good example of that would be Cheryl Van Roo, who is from the Gold Coast. She sent us some photos. I'm hoping somebody can help me with what looks like rust on my plants. Can we have a look? All right, so let's have a look at this plant. This is really unusual because this is actually a ginger plant, and ginger plants don't get rust. So this variegated alpinia is showing signs of damage on the leaves, but it's not from rust. It's actually from something else that I would suspect is probably dryness in the soil. It's a really weird thing, Cheryl, but what I would suggest you do is get a wetting agent, something, you know, liquid like sea salt wetting agent. That will also help stimulate regrowth with root growth and recovery from stress. But most importantly, you know, it's going to stimulate this plant to recover. Sometimes you'll see that effect as they get older as well. It's a little bit of wear and tear where they bash against each other, and sometimes that can cause that sort of problem. So my suggestion, give them a dose of sea salt in the watering can. Just on watering cans, I wanted to show you this. You know, innovation, Garden Gurus, we are absolutely focused on innovation all the time. And you'd think that something like the watering can, and do you reckon we can get that photo down? And so I can show that. But see the watering can? Now, watering cans can't be changed, can they? I mean, the design's the design, or is it? And this is a good example of where very clever designs come into play. How stylish does that look? And absolute precise delivery of the water. That's your container inside, and you could actually have 2 or 3 of these, and they just stack into each other. It is absolutely brilliant. This is just one of the new innovations coming from Holman, and the good thing about this is it's made of recycled plastic. I just love it. I just love things that are new and different, that make gardening better, that are better for the environment. And we don't apologise in the Garden Gurus for working with innovators in the industry to show you the latest and greatest ideas. It's what it's all about. Sometimes people get offended, and I don't mean to offend you, but I love the garden industry and I love the innovation of the people who are in it, whether they be plant breeders or whether they be people thinking about making gardening easier for you. I just think it's what it's all about, and being able to share that advice is one of the great pleasures I have. And speaking of advice, I think I better get on with it. King Liao, hello, you're in Waterford. That's over here in Perth. Now, King actually has sent us some photographs. This is great. I bought this volunteer camellia last year. It's repotted in premium azalea and camellia mix. It has produced numerous fat buds, but when they finally opened, it was disappointing. Can we have a look at this photograph and let's see what's going on? Because they do love a bit of phosphorus about now. Oh, there we go. Yeah, those flowers don't look Right, King. In fact, the bud might be the giveaway below. You can see the browning on this. This is a thrip. This is a thrip problem, and it's really quite a significant issue because you don't normally see this with camellias. It's certainly common with roses at this time of the year, but thrips on flowers will cause that, and you end up with a duller flower, often misformed, and sometimes they don't just come out brown. They don't even open properly. King, what you're going to need to do here is you need to use a systemic insecticide. I actually saw one in my local Mitre 10 store the other day that uses a systemic active ingredient that's extremely effective, and it might be worthwhile popping into your local Mitre 10 and just having a look at that, because it really does make a big difference with regards to the results you get. And you want to apply this if you've still got some flowers now, which should be close to finished, but you want to apply this basically when you see the buds start to form. Best bit of advice. Everybody's asking, where can you get them from? Well, guess what? You can get them from your local Bunnings store. It's a great little idea, isn't it? From Holman, who thought you could change the design of a watering can? And yet they did. Clever people. All right, let's keep rolling along. Diane Sheridan, you're in Euroa in Victoria. My plum trees are dropping small fruit. We have them covered with insect netting, but only after they had flowered and started fruit. The trees are looking well and are watered, so we can't figure out what's happening. You probably have a lot of fruit in the tree, and what's happening is the tree's going, okay, we produce so much, there's so much moisture in the soil, so much energy in the soil. There are so many fruit on this tree, and whatever the deficiency is between the amount of moisture to sustain that fruit growing to its full size and what is available, the tree will naturally go through a shedding process, and it'll just drop fruit. And you might feel like it's really disappointing, but it won't drop all the fruit. It'll hold all the fruit it can sustain. So you want to make sure you're maintaining irrigation. You don't really need to feed them. You can if you want to, but it's not really going to make any big difference at the moment. The most important thing is consistent soil moisture levels, and then that tree will hold a certain amount of fruit, and that fruit will grow to its full size. So don't go freaking out. It's actually natural. Trees do naturally go through a shedding process when it comes to fruit, and as I've just talked about with leaves when conditions are dry. All right, let's go to Tassie. We haven't gone to Tassie today. Linnell Miller. Hello, Linnell. Apart from digging, is there anything I can do to treat the suckers coming up my lawn from my cherry blossom tree? It's a really interesting thing. The reason your cherry blossom is suckering is the roots are right on the surface of the soil. And when they come in contact with direct light, they have the capability of developing a growth bud, and that grows up. Now, you don't want that to grow because it's the rootstock. So it'll never be the same as your cherry blossom tree. So you do need to either do one or two things. One is put a layer of soil over the top. You can add organic material, so fine sieved organic soil improver over the top of the soil of your garden in a layer, and probably, 20 millimeters thick. It's probably enough to stop them from sucking up. Now, the second thing I need to tell you is that when you treat suckers, if you cut it with a spade, if you cut it with secateurs, it will encourage more suckers to emerge. It's one of the catches. What you've got to do is you've got to pull it away with your bare hands. That will really help. It's an interesting problem. I think one of the things that we often talk about, and cherry blossoms are a really good one, it's a cool climate plant. A lot of people who are in cool climates like Tasmania are unable to grow some of the warm climate plants, like, say, papaya is a good example, or mango. With papaya, however, there are some other options that you can think about. There's a cool climate papaya that comes from Peru, from the Andes and the mountains, and this is the fruit of it. I'm growing it in my garden. My garden's borderline on growing papaya. So I'm in Perth, but I'm in the hills, so it's a few degrees cooler during the winter. But look at this beautiful Zeppelin fruit. And it's absolutely magnificent. I quite like it, but I like it blended with something else. So in a fruit salad, it's often called champagne fruit. It's got this beautiful aroma on the mature fruit as they yellow. This is sun ripened, so it's about as good as it gets, I think. But interestingly enough, it's called champagne fruit because when you cut it open, it doesn't have any seeds. This plant can only be grown from cutting, which is really interesting. So it's called babako. The fruit is called champagne fruit. It's got this tingly anise flavor to it, so it's really quite unusual. And when you cut it open, I'll show you what it looks like. So that's the fruit with the pith scraped out. That's got pith in it, that one there. And that one's scraped out. And you can literally eat the skin, the flesh, the whole lot. It's a very, very different fruit. That with scoops of vanilla ice cream in it as a dessert, pretty hard to beat. Pretty hard to beat. It's also got kind of like, you know, that tingly sensation where it gets its champagne name. That tingly sensation on the tongue is kind of like sherbet. Remember the old-fashioned sherbets? That's sort of what it's like. Babako. Now, it's not commonly found, but you can try the guys at Garden Express, and some of the special fruit tree nurseries also do have it. Hopefully that helps. Okay, let's keep moving along because you guys are sending me lots and lots of questions, and I really appreciate you being involved. It's a great pleasure to be able to join you each week during the season of the Garden Gurus to be able to answer your questions, because we know whatever we put on TV, it's probably not necessarily going to answer the problems that you're having in your backyard. We try, but it's such a large subject matter. Okay, Nigel Smith, you're in Murray Bridge in South Australia. It's a beautiful part of the world. Hey guys, I've got a question for anyone that's able to help me with. I've got Sir Walter buffalo grass. It's a soft blade growing, and it's slowly getting these dead looking patches here and there. It's gone from soft lush green to hard dull patchy look. Time to renovate, mate. This is the time to get either a corer, probably there's this cool they call it a scarifier. I would call it a vertimower. It's got a blade that goes like this in a vertical motion instead of like a horizontal motion like a normal mower. What you do is you go and you cut down hard, and then with your normal mower, as low as you can possibly go, and then you bring the vertimower in. And what it does is it rips thatch out of the lawn, it opens the lawn up. I would immediately apply something like gypsum over that to ensure that we get better soil structure underneath, and a light fertilizing with something organic, maybe dynamic lifter. And then that lawn, those patches will disappear. It'll take about 3 to 4 weeks at least to recover fully. But once it's done that, you probably won't need to do anything with it again for another 2 or possibly even 3 years. This is not an uncommon thing with Sir Walter Buffalo. It does get a little bit like this, but my solution for you, a lawn renovation, will do the world of good. And if you don't know how to do that, if you feel like, oh, it's a bit too hard, or I don't have a vertimower, that's okay. You can either hire the vertimower from your local specialist, or alternatively, the other thing you can do is, of course, get your lawnmower man in who will know how to renovate a lawn. Every once in a while, they need a little bit of extra love if you want them looking perfect. All right, Krista Anderson. We're not sure where you're from, Krista. Let me know. Let me know. Now, you've got a good question. How do I tell the difference between determinate and indeterminate tomatoes and potatoes? All right. It's a really good question. I was actually looking at my potatoes in the garden yesterday, and I've got a mixture of both. Now, the determinant is in a potato is you plant the potato and it will, off its roots, grow lots of other potatoes. You think that's how they all work. Indeterminate will mean that you can mound it up and the potatoes will grow up the stem. So you end up with some potatoes on the roots, but some coming off roots that are coming off the stem. Now, tomatoes and potatoes are actually from the same family, the Solanum family. And the same thing occurs with tomatoes going up. So it's a case of the flower producing fruit at the very top of the plant. And will it do it all the way up? Will it produce fruit all the way? How do you tell? Well, you can either, the only way to really do it is to, right from the very beginning, select the right varieties. And they will tell you on the label if they are or if they aren't. The second thing is obviously you can then watch them as they grow, but of course you can't change anything. So, Krista, great question. I mean, that's got to be in the running for our question of the day. Remember the $50 gift voucher at Garden Express. And just on that, It's the season's pretty much over for them. They may have some left, but potatoes, that's a really good example of where they've got all these beautiful new varieties of potatoes, and some of them are determinate, some are indeterminate. How's that? Good question. I bet you didn't know anything about that before. All right, Christy Smith, back in Hobart, we're back in Tassie. This is great. We've got raised garden beds, and I've discovered a cat has been using it as kitty litter. Now, they will do that sometimes. I know this can be quite dangerous. We've removed all that we can see, but there could be more in there, and I'm not sure if the toxins have already been transferred to the soil. Should we dispose of the soil and start again, or just not worry about it? Okay, great thing about Mother Nature is that soil bacteria will consume that waste. The real risk is not a toxin as such in the manure, but more so, obviously, with any kind of manure, to be quite honest, is bacterial infections getting into, bacteria getting onto the foliage of your plants and you consuming that foliage. One thing I would say is make sure you're washing your veggies thoroughly when you use them. As far as the only thing I would really be trying to do is make sure that the cat doesn't get back onto those beds. And there's a few deterrents. There are some various deterrents like lemon, for example. They don't like strong acidy citrus, so they'll often get up and disappear. There are some things that you can lay out on the ground, like some coarse pumice. Sorry, I was just trying to think of the name of the rock, as a little ground cover over the top. They don't like digging through that, so they'll often just get up and just go somewhere else, or netting is the other thing. But yeah, you don't want any kind of manure coming in contact with things that you're eating for obvious reasons. I would think that's probably the best way to put it. Okay, Kingsley out. He just came back and said, thanks for answering my camellia question. Is there anything excuse me, is there anything similar I can get from Bunnings for the treatment of thrips? There isn't any mitre 10 near me where I am. There are definitely some things that you can get from Bunnings. Bunnings has a huge range of things. Just have a quick chat to them about systemics. Okay, it's really important that you get a systemic treatment. King, hopefully that answers your question. We've got 9 questions sitting on the board at the moment, and we've got 7 minutes to go. So let's roll through it. Rayman, you're in Melbourne. Please help. I've got a Washington navel tree. It's about 4 years old. Now suddenly its leaves have spotting on them and a light colour, and they've dried out. Do you think it could be a canker? Any advice on a remedy? I think it's fertiliser. I think they're hungry, mate. That's the key. I wouldn't worry about it too much. I would be feeding them. They're prolific feeders. They need lots and lots of nutrients. Specialised citrus fertiliser is the way to go. Catherine Barker. Hi, Trevor. What's the best mulch to use heading into a hot, dry summer? Well, just from my point of view, there's so many different options out there. But as long as it's organic and you put a layer in at least 50 mil deep, but ideally around 100 mil deep, you're going to get protection. You get that. Effectively, it's an insulation on the surface of the soil, which stops the roots below, those feeder roots, ones that are really sensitive, from stressing too much. And that's the whole goal there. And of course, it does, as it breaks down, add nutrient to the plant as well. Taffa Meredith, you're in Sydney. Hello. Hi. Are there any good indoor plants that give out a nice scent or smell, please? It's a very good question. Let me think that through. There's certainly a lot of plants that can be brought indoors when they're in flower that put out a fragrance, including some of the foliage plants, but certainly flowering plants. It's a good one. Let me think about that, Taffa. It's a very, very interesting question. The best smelling indoor plant. I might throw it out to you guys as well. Have you got one that you prefer? Got me thinking. Good question. Susan Pickering's in Tasmania. I wanted to start a small veggie garden on my front veranda. I've got limited space, but would have to plant everything in pots. What would you recommend me to grow? Well, there's actually a lot of dwarf compact veggies that you can buy that are sold as dwarf veggies, either as seedlings or as seed. And they're probably ideal in that environment. Things like tumbler tomatoes and stuff like that. They do really well in hanging baskets, and they'll produce all fruit hanging off the side. It's little cherry fruits, lovely. But yeah, it's a little bit of research, remembering that you do you do have this situation where when plants are growing in containers, they will be constricted by the amount of space their roots have to grow. So, effectively, it's a bonsai effect. They can't grow lots of roots, so they end up growing a small, compact plant. But yeah, it's a good question. Thanks, Susan. Pamelulita, hello, you're in Victoria, and it's great to have you back with us. You're a great supporter. Thank you, Pame. I have just Joey roses, which flower repeatedly. How do I correctly prune between blooms? Well, to be quite honest, once they start flowering, the only thing you need to do is deadhead. So as soon as the flowers are finished, deadhead, pull them back. Generally, you want to take 30 centimetres off that stem, back down to a bud. It was really interesting. I was reading something recently where there's been this great body of research done on pruning to a 45-degree angle on an outward-facing, bud. That does encourage that bud to go out that way. But the 45-degree angle, it doesn't matter whether you cut flat or 45 degrees, they couldn't find any correlation with any benefit either way. Certainly, the theory that I was always taught was if it's flat, moisture could sit on it, disease could set in, but that didn't appear to be the case in real trials. Okay, we have 3 minutes to go. We're down to our last 3 questions. Carolyn Conlon is in New South Wales. You're not in New South Wales. You're in northeast Victoria. I think The Apprentice might not have got that one too well. Never mind, Way. I'm in northeast Victoria. Hot, dry summers, cold, wet winters. Got some shrubs in large 50-litre plastic tubs on top of the ground. Hydrangeas, blueberries, and others. Are there any benefits or disadvantages to? I can't see the rest of that question, Way. Are there any benefits or disadvantages to semi or fully burying the pots in the ground, especially for summer? Or should I leave them on top of the soil? Look, you know what? Burying pots in the ground for these kinds of plants that you want to be in tubs is something that you can do, and it will help insulate them against some of the stresses, because when a pot's out of the ground, particularly if it's a black tub, black absorbs sunlight and heat. So it does get very hot, and plants, when they're in a tub, they grow down like this and their roots grow out. When they hit the side of the tub, they grow down the side of the tub like that. So they are the most exposed. So burying it in the ground is actually not a bad idea, Carolyn. It's going to get you through those hot, dry summers. Yeah. And a little bit of mulching around the top of the plant won't hurt as well, just out of interest. Kayleen Harding, I'm not sure where you're from, Kayleen. How do I keep aphids off my lettuce plants with sprays? Just a simple pyrethrum spray is the easiest way to do it, Kayleen. And you probably only need to do it twice, and you'll break the cycle. So it's very unusual to see aphids in big volumes on lettuce plants. It suggests that the lettuce might not be getting enough sunlight, or they might be a little bit on the weaker side. But that can be through too much moisture sometimes. But as a general comment, the easiest way to control aphids is a pyrethrum spray. Okay, we have one more question to go. All right, and we have 1 more minute. Rachel Hewitt, hello, you're in Wattle Grove. That's over here in Perth. It's just down the hill from where I live, actually. It's a beautiful part of the world. Is it necessary to get rid of white cabbage moth? Do they do a great deal of damage, or can I ignore them? It depends whether you have got cabbage, because if you've got cabbage, if you've got cauliflower, they will lay their eggs on the foliage, and their grubs will eat all that foliage. They love it, and controlling that is important where you are eating the foliage. So any of the Chinese cabbage varieties will be set back, and you won't be able to eat that for. Look, you could, but you won't enjoy eating it because it won't quite look right when it's been damaged by that, and particularly with things like cabbage. So I tend not to get worried about them in the early stages of the cabbage's development, but I will treat my cabbages for white cabbage butterfly or moth grubs once I'm starting to get the hearts formed, because I don't want them burrowing into the hearts of the cabbage, because that's what I want to eat. The external leaves I'm not overly concerned about. So the first leaves, I let them do their thing. Second leaves, well, of course, that's the ones that you want to eat, so you don't want them to be eaten. So that's my rule of thumb, I suppose. Rachel Hewitt in Wattle Grove, thank you very much. And thank you very much to everybody today. We have had a very busy show. We've been belting through these questions and haven't been able to keep up with them, knowing very well that You probably put some questions in that we haven't got to, but we will answer them next week, I promise you. The winner of our $50 gift voucher from Garden Express is Krista Anderson in Ballarat, Victoria. That was a great question, by the way. Really, really good. How do I tell the difference between determinate and indeterminate tomatoes, potatoes? And that is obviously that thing that I've just explained, is that they do perform differently, but you've got to buy them that way. Otherwise, it doesn't, even when you're growing them, it doesn't really make a big difference after that. If you want to win that amazing $250 Troforte fertilizer hamper, what you need to do is you need to go to the Troforte Facebook page now. As soon as we're finished, jump on and type in this word. It is grafting. Nice and easy. Put that in, like the page, share it with your friends. Troforte is an amazing fertilizer. It really does incredible things. I'm going to show you some photos of my garden in a couple of weeks' time. It's a little bit mind-blowing at the moment. It's really starting to take off. We're getting warm weather. I've got my moisture levels right. And the most important thing is I've got lots of nutrient in there supporting that growth. So the veggies are taking off. We're harvesting heaps and heaps of broccoli, the Romanesco type, the red type, and a beautiful purple type of broccoli. I've also, so there's they're the heirloom varieties, and I've been harvesting some most amazing cabbage and cauliflower. So that's all come off that particular fertilizing regime. It really does the world of good. Okay, the Troforte code word is grafting. Jump on that page. And if you haven't used Troforte before, give it a go. It's really good stuff. All right. Remember, please hit the like button if you like what we did today. If you like the show, share it with your friends. It's really important we have your support. We were really busy today, and it's great to have that. We go to a lot of effort to make this work. We obviously have these amazing offers from the people like Garden Express. And of course, we're always sharing innovative ideas like that super cool watering can. Isn't that great? Look at the delivery on that. Just amazing. We'll be back next week. We've got another live show then. Remember, if you want any information, of course, you can get it from our website. You can get it from our Facebook page. Check out our YouTube channel as well if you want to watch some TV. And, of course, most importantly with TV, Saturday, 4:30 p.m. on Channel 9 right across Australia, you will find the Garden Gurus. And on the Garden Gurus, you'll find me. I'm Trevor Cochran, and I'll see you next week for the Garden Gurus Live.